Yasas. What happens when you take two vibrant brothers that are descendants from the Greeks in Constantinople, embracing their American roots, and then ask them to serve up rich tales of traditions, cuisine, childhood memories, and a hearty dose of humor? You're about to find out. This is Baklavine Banter, your passport to all things Greek.
Welcome back to another episode of Baklavan Banter, the podcast where we dive into all things Greek. We are very excited today as we have a special treat for you all. Joining us is a man who's been making audiences laugh around the world with his unique blend of comedy and Greek heritage. He's a powerhouse on the stage, known for his hilarious takes on Greek culture, family dynamics, and the everyday absurdities we all experience, whether he's performing in English or Greek. He has a knack for connecting with audiences and bringing out the humor in the simplest of things. Please welcome to Baklavan Banter, the incredibly talented and always entertaining Basile the comedian. Welcome, Basile.
Hey guys, how are you? So wonderful to be on the show with both of you. Thank you so much. Sotiraki, you're my hero. Love the new haircut. It looks fantastic, to be quite honest with
Thank
you.
you. We
And
try.
Petros, it's great being with you both.
Yeah, we appreciate it. We appreciate it. So, Basil, let's kind of, before we get into the whole comedy aspect of it, why don't we start off with growing up? Where'd you grow up? Where were you born? You know,
I was born in South Jersey, way South Jersey, a place called Woodstown, Salem, right? So it's a beautiful area. I mean, if you go there, honest to God, you'll sit there and go, there is no way this is Jersey. There's a rodeo. There's a rodeo
yes,
in Salem,
Cowtown.
Woodstown, New Jersey, a rodeo. Because when you think rodeo, Jersey is the first thing that pops in your mind. That's me.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So the only thing I kept thinking about is this guy from Jersey. He's got his cigarettes rolled up in his sleeve, right? He's walking around. Yeah, so I'm bucking this rodeo. I'm jumping up and down on the saddle, and I'm like, hey, And I'm like, this doesn't even fit. Why the hell are we even here? But I went, and it's so cool because I went to go and get my actual birth certificates. And
Okay.
I had to get them because my mom changed my name. And
Oh.
yeah, a lot of people don't know. So I was born Vasily, right?
Oh.
Katsikis, and Zanis is my middle name, right? So
Okay.
I'm like, okay. And someone came up to my parents when I was a kid and they said, oh my God, are you guys Russian? And you know as well as I do, I mean, that was to be taboo. If you were Russian back in the 60s and 70s, oh my Lord, the Cold War, everything. So
Yeah.
my mom literally changed my name from Vasile to
Uh-huh.
Basile. She forgot the
Mm-hmm.
E at the end. So people are like, is it Basile? Is it Bizele? Is it, it's just basil, but there's a basil E at the end. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
just my mother was an idiot. What do you want me to tell you? I'm sorry. So we wound up leaving because of the way my name was spelled, evidently. We wound up leaving and we moved to Long Island, New York. And so my dad opened up a restaurant because, as we all know, we're Greek and it's a law. We wound up
Mm-hmm.
opening up a restaurant, and my father owned a place called Zane's Charcoal Den, and that was in
Mm-hmm.
Riverhead. And we were there for, oh my God, my dad owned that place from 62 to, to 75, 76. And then he
Mm-hmm.
became a head chef at various hotels and banquet facilities and stuff like that. And then I went to school there in Long Island in like that Riverhead area, but it was really Middle Island. And I grew up there and I
Mm-hmm.
went to Longwood High School and Belport High School. I went to two high schools. And that's where, I kind of was born and raised in the island. We had a lot of Greeks all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an only child. After my parents had me, they said, screw it, we're doing something wrong. And they never
Yeah.
had any more kids, So I was very, very fortunate to have two loving parents. And it was just a lot of fun being in with them because, I went through that bratty stage when I was really young
Sure.
because there were no kids around where I could be a brat at 7, 8, 9 years old. I was really a brat when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and then I grew out of it. So
Mm-hmm.
I was always around elderly people, older people, and I would just watch their mannerisms and how they talked and certain I would imitate them, and that's where I learned, I guess to do that and make fun of these people. My mom goes, "Do Uncle George, do Uncle Lou, do this, do Theo Yanni,"
Yeah.
and I'm saying, okay, and
Okay.
and that's where it all started, where I kind of got the base of what I do today.
Yeah, I've heard you say, and we relate to it, that television was your babysitter, and it's amazing what you develop by well, maybe not nowadays, because nowadays it's all messed up if you ask
Yeah,
me,
it
but I'm
is.
biased that
It
way.
is.
I think back then, with the variety of shows that were on, and things that we watched, I think it was interesting that you said that, because I can totally
Oh,
relate to it.
absolutely. It was the greatest babysitter. Our parents just threw us in front of the television, right? They threw us in front
Yeah.
of the TV and they didn't have to do a damn thing. But the thing was,
Yeah.
I couldn't speak English until I was like 5 or 6,
Yeah.
right? We
We
neither
were the
neither
same
of us
way.
could, right?
Same one.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're sitting there and I started picking up on voices in cartoons and they used primary colors and that's what attracted us. Even when I was a little baby, they didn't have Sesame Street and have him, Dracula, one, blueberry, two blueberries, three blueberries. We didn't have that bullshit. Are you serious? So I had the greatest political cartoon to watch, which was Bullwinkle, Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Yeah.
And this is the way I got my gig with Universal. I would watch Bullwinkle as a kid
Uh-huh.
and I would imitate his voice, but not the words. And I would do Bullwinkle in
Okay.
Greek. And it was
Okay.
hysterical. So I would go up to my mom, "Mi tera tena pa wek tena mi klana Pedro Miliaki." And my mom goes, "That's it. We got to teach him English." So I wound up going ahead and doing Bullwinkle like that. And little did I know, many years later, I would be the redubbing master for Rocky and Bullwinkle loops that were made from 1959 to early 61. So I've worked on over 72 various loops. And
Wow.
then I do stuff for Universal Park System for announcements. And even did some of the Taco Bell commercials with June Foray, who was the voice of Rocket J Squirrel. And a lot of people don't know that. And so Ellie and I
Who's a
will look at
legend.
me and they're like, Díganos, the moose, the bullwinkle, bravo. They have no idea what the hell that I was doing. They had no clue.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but it's the honor of doing that. And then, of course, I've done a ton of Japanese anime with my various, voices that I've done. And then a lot of commercials that you have probably heard, either regional or national. So I've done that as
Mm-hmm.
well. So I've been very, very
Did
blessed.
did the voiceover, was that your primary before going to comedy? Was that your
No.
Is that something that you develop, or how did that develop? I mean,
Uh,
the voices, obviously you were doing it as a child. Did that?
Listen, to be quite honest with you, my goal is I really want to play pro ball. I was a good ball
Okay.
player.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was my goal. I was a
Yeah.
good ball player in junior high school. I was a great ball player in high school. I was
Mm-hmm.
one of the best in the county of Suffolk County. And then I wound up going ahead and I went to Purdue. And then you're like, oh man, and I got my feelings hurt. Let's put it this way. I got my ass kicked in, so my career
Mm-hmm.
was stunted short and got hurt. And that was the end of that. So you have to
Got it.
think back when you have these goals as a young man, you're like,
Mm-hmm.
what am I going to do now? I geared my life to do this. And then all of a sudden you're like, no, that didn't work out. What am I going to do now? So I leaned on the one thing that I knew that I had, but never really used, and that was my brain. So I wound up coming back to New York and I wound up working
Okay.
construction for my uncle for a company called JK Environmental. And believe it or not, I did construction work for 9 months. And in 9 months, I
Wow.
worked time and a half, and double time, and actually raised at that time. Back in the early '80s, I made roughly about almost $90,000, like
Wow.
$87,000. I lived
Wow.
Wow.
at my uncle's ergostasio. He had this factory.
Uh-huh.
He had a place at that time. He met his new wife And he goes, stay here, because it was in Copeg. I'm sure you heard of Copeg before. It was in
Yeah.
Copeg, so I stayed there, and I would literally go ahead and I learned how to arc weld. I learned how to do, I used to look at, actual plans, and I would build various types of ductwork and stuff like that. So we would build certain things and replace the ductwork for incinerators, then create incinerators. And I would do everything from A to Z, sleep for about 4 hours. That's all I was working on. And then at about 4 o'clock in the morning, I woke up, started loading the trucks, with the tow motor, put everything in, acetylene torches, tanks, you name it, whatever I needed to get going for all the trucks that we were sending at various places. Made all that money. And then one day I was in front of the Twin Towers, and it was February, and it was cold. And I saw this guy in this beautiful camel hair coat, an older guy.
Yeah.
And he was carrying a valise. And I'm like, son of a gun's probably an attorney. That's the life I want. And from then on, I thought I was going to be an attorney. When I got off work that day, I went to a bookstore. I can't remember the name of the bookstore. And I got the Reader's Digest of crazy, wacky laws on the books today, because they need to be entertaining, right?
Sure.
And I wound up reading it and said, my God, this is really phenomenal. And it kept my interest. Again, finally using the brain. And of course, I never really associated with any of my friends. All my other friends were playing ball. They were doing this. They had great success. Then all of a sudden, I sat there. I said, I got to get out of this. And I made so much money, I could able to put myself through school. My mom and dad were in a streak of bad luck. They couldn't really take care of it, and my education. So I went to Cleveland one weekend, and without anyone knowing, I actually left on a Thursday, and I got my my actual address, and I used my aunt's address. She didn't even know I was there. And my cousin George, who I gave so much thanks that he never scolded me, he picked me up from the airport. I got my residency set. I did everything, came back, set up residency in Ohio, and I finished up my education at Cleveland, Cleveland, Ohio, Cleveland State University, where I got my degree. Then I went to law school, and it was really phenomenal. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do something real quick, because I forgot to plug in my actual computer. So I'm running out of juice right now. So why don't you guys sing amongst yourselves for a moment as I go ahead, and no one's going to notice anything.
No.
It's good. It's good. We're going to take a brief hiatus.
Yes. This part of Baklava and Banter is sponsored by Teton Foods. Teton Foods, we closed after 40 years, but we'll be opening up again soon. Teton Foods in the center of Astoria, New York.
Yeah, I'm almost there.
We never did a follow-up on that, now that you mention it.
It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, we
Don't
definitely.
open. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much. While finding power for my computer, I literally went to the bathroom and checked the mail. So, yeah, I'm so sorry. I was so I wanted to make sure that all the connections were fine, because like I told you,
It's
I am
okay.
in my studio right now. This is my sound studio that I have.
Yeah.
And oh God, I'm going to try and show you guys. This is my actual sound studio. Okay.
Love it.
And then over here, oh God, on this side, I have everything from my Zephyr and everything, which I do. It's my codec, which I can go ahead and do commercials all over the world in real time, basically, with a digital in, digital out. So I do that for Australia, and I can do interviews in Australia and all that stuff when I do commercials and stuff. And also when I do other sound characters. I was the voice of James Brown during the OJ trials. So I did it's kind of stupid, but I was the voice of James Brown calling in. I was, if you guys ever listen to WPLJ out of New York, okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you ever heard James Brown with Scott Shannon and all the Ross Britton and all that, good God Almighty, this is James Brown with another OJ trial update. Let me tell you what people what went down. Okay, so I would do this crap, right? So I was like, who else but James Brown would actually hold on for a second? I'm there. Cancel. Hold on, I just want to make sure I have everything. So I'm like an idiot, and I'm literally trying to go ahead and get these characters. So I would, as soon as I was done off stage, doing my
Uh-huh.
gig, it could be at any comedy club around the country.
Sure.
I would run to the bar. And they would always have a TV. And if you guys remember, CNN would have the breakdown as to exactly. Let me move this down to it so I can look a little better. There we go. I gotta make sure I look beautiful. Anyway, and I would write down all the storylines of what happened that day at court. So everyone had a moniker. It was
Mm-hmm.
Mark KKK Furman, F. Lee Pearl Bailey, He's My Hero Shapiro, Big Bud Deputy Darden, Sushi Man Ito, Big Bird Marsha Clark. And so James Brown, the thing is with James, because he was in prison, but who else was going to have a non-biased opinion of how the white man was treating O.J. Simpson, but a man, James Brown, who was in prison already, right? So I would write this stuff, and because I had no one knew who it was. They really, it was like, this can't be James, but I would call in and at WPLJ at 4:30 in the morning, AM,
Yeah.
cut
Yeah.
the bit out of that with the phone, and then they would shoot it to all through via satellite through all the radio stations. And then I did the Rick D's countdown and did all that as well, which
Right.
was great because I knew everything
Wow.
was going on. But the funny part about James, you really didn't understand what the hell he was saying. Okay. So they were talking a thing called, they were talking about a thing called DNA, also known as the nuh. Now, the nuh has a thing called a G track, G1, G2, G4, G5. Sushi Man Needle, he jumped back and went, hey, you sang about Battleship. This is James Brown with another OJ trial update. Let me tell you what people, And that was it. Okay. Well, that paid for all the new furniture throughout the house, doing that crap. And it
Wow.
was great. And it also got me a lot of wonderful awards. It was a huge feather in my cap, but a lot of people don't know that it was a Greek guy doing that. And then, I got a chance to work, with a lot of wonderful voice actors and actresses.
Mm-hmm.
And I should always call them actors, men and women, who were just phenomenal in that. And that
Sure.
to me was always a lot of fun. And then I would do James Brown in Greek. Oh, cos'emo? Ti regalo mi daughter? Huh? I'm a sto diavolo. Sitting there. Nana filaki. So,
Wow.
so, and all my friends were going, can you do just one for a time for me? So I would do like like a ringtone for them. Cambio
Yeah.
sin su teléfono, malaga. It's like whatever. So to me, that was always a lot of fun to do. And then I got very,
Yeah.
very, very close with the churches. We were talking
Right.
about what faith means to me and
Mm-hmm.
how lucky we all are that we have that. Yeah, I do believe in the higher power. If you don't believe, you may want to turn this part of the program off, but I happen to believe. This is the way I am. You don't like it? What can I tell you? Um,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
you know, uh, it, Panayas has saved my life,
Mm-hmm.
warned me about certain things that I shouldn't do or do.
Mm-hmm.
We all need that special power, and I think we all have that special power, and by looking up and making sure that that we have something to believe in.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and I taught my kids the same thing. I have two beautiful daughters. I will talk about my family a little bit because it's more of a Greek centric program. And my daughters are pretty well known in the Greek community throughout the United States and really throughout
Sure.
North America. Zacharula is a tremendous graphic artist. She's very kind of well known in the circles. And then
Mm-hmm.
Katerina, she is an eighth grade school teacher, tough as nails. What I love about her, she puts the fear of God in kids, and she tells them the truth. Because if remember, being an eighth grader, you're dealing with we're going through that change, right? You're
Yeah.
from being a little boy into going into becoming a
Yeah.
man, and you're testing and you're doing all that. And she has no problem taking the kid by the collar and says, "Come here. You die in
Mm-hmm.
3 years because you're actually going to die in 3 years. You can
Yeah.
either learn and survive and be better than everyone else around you, or you can prepare yourself and die at a very young age. Which do you want? And she deals with a lot of
Yeah.
inner city kids that are shipped over
Yeah.
to her and stuff like that. So I admire both of them very, very, very much. And I am blessed. And with us, man, always looking over
Yeah.
my shoulder, protecting us when we travel, protecting us when we're on the road and all
Absolutely.
that. So yeah, very blessed.
And
Did you?
let me just say this with all honesty. Today is my name's day.
Hey, by the way, how does it divertido, bro?
Thank you, Peter and Paul. And we have respect for religion, but there's also humor in
Of course.
religion. Uh, like my brother always say, like Paul writes these letters to the Corinthians. Like, first, where did he get their address from? Was it at some convention? We never answered these questions. And at any point
It's
in
actually
time,
very funny.
and at
what was
any
the
point
zip
in
code?
time,
What's the zip? You got
yeah,
the zip code for the
yeah,
Corinthian.
Corinthian, yeah,
What do
yeah,
you mean he moved?
yeah. And then did the letters show up? And they were like, another letter from Paul. Are you kidding? Like, and at any point in time, like, we know that Jesus, listen, we knew Jesus was a good fisherman, but by trade, he was a carpenter. We never know if Jesus was a good carpenter or not. Nowhere does in the old, in the Testament does it say, hey guys, Jesus took, the apostles back to the wood shop and we built an armoire today. These are questions I like to know, you know?
So,
I'm just wondering.
my yaya sees a bumper sticker, and the bumper sticker said, "My Lord is a Jewish carpenter." And my yaya goes, "In a union." And I started just laughing. And I'm thinking, it makes sense. We've been paying dues at church for how long? Those were union dues. What happens one day? You're going to get a knock on the door. Hey, listen, we haven't seen anything from you guys. What's up with the dues? And, so I used to do this. I made this whole thing about, because I have friends of mine who are Jehovah's Witnesses, right?
Sure.
And I always do knock jokes to them all the time. The most obscure knock jokes. And I go, so I said, do you think when Jehovah's Witnesses knock on the pearly gates, St. Peter's behind the couch looking at his wife going, shh, don't answer the door. No, we'll build him a watchtower. It's okay. It's okay.
So,
religion is interesting that
oh,
way.
it is. But some people will get
the,
offended. Some people get offended,
Absolutely.
and it's cool. And sometimes you got to know.
Sure.
Listen, when I perform, and I perform at synagogues and actual churches, and people who know me, and they know I can do my material clean. They know I can do it a little bit risque. But when I do churches for Greek programs and stuff like that, and the show's basically about 80 to 90% English and 10% Greek, because there are so many interfaith marriages, right, that are
Sure.
involved right now. And you know what? To me, it's great. Everyone gets it. It's a PG-13 show, and everyone is enjoying it. And you want the priest. You have to show that the priest, because everyone's afraid to say anything to the priest, right? Or what? I go right after him, but in a nice, respectful way. I say, Perez, how did you meet Father? Oh my God. And it's always a great story. It's never, oh my God, we met at a bar. He was wearing black. I was really turned on. It was nothing like that. It's always something to do. Oh my God, we met at a YAL conference. We met at a Goya retreat when we were younger. We met at Ionian Village, which is also known as Presbyteros for us. We met at, so you're sitting there getting all this information. And so this one priest told me, and I can't tell you his name, but his church is in Phoenix, Arizona. Anyway, so I said, how did you meet Presbytera? And he goes, well, I wasn't a priest yet. I was a deacon. I was chanting at a funeral, and I saw her and fell in love. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, I saw her and fell in love as I was chanting at a funeral, and I was just a deacon. I said, dude, you can't pick up a woman at a funeral. It's her most vulnerable. He goes, I know, but I saw her. And the only thing I could think about is he was chanting, he goes, they've been married for 45 years, so it's working. You know what I'm saying? It's working very, very well for them. I love when you can go ahead. And Pete, you and I were talking the other
Mm-hmm.
day, and they they pulled me in to do. I got to tell this story because it always makes
You
me
gotta
laugh.
tell it.
So I took my kids to this Goya thing they had on Wednesday night, and so I took them. My wife goes, "Just stay," and I think they're all doing a Bible study. I said, "What?" Just going to Bible. You want me to go into the Bible study? She goes, "Just go into Bible study. It'll be fun and everything." I said, What do you fun and Bible study? Woo! Yeah, let's pull out the booze, because it's going to be a blast. Okay. So the priest that was there, God bless his soul, man, he was just so much fun. And Father looks at me, and they're sitting down, and they're doing the story about the farmer who is paying all the workers 2 denar a day for a full day's work. For the man who comes in the morning from sun up to sundown, he gets 2 denar. And even the one who comes midday and works till sundown, he gets 2 denar. And even the man who comes an hour before sundown, he works for 1 hour, he gets 2 denar. And I'm sitting there and I'm just shaking my head, laughing, and my shoulders are. And he goes, Vasily, what is it? He goes, what do you think about the story? I said, I don't know too much about the story, but let me tell you, that's a shitty union. That's all I'm going to say, okay? I don't care where you get this crap. And he just starts laughing, and everyone just breaks out. How do you explain this to your union? So I just broke out, and ever since then I loved biblical stories. I know the
Sure.
true meaning behind the stories.
Right.
In this
Mm-hmm.
last one I just said, which means it never matters when you come to Christ, you always are going to get the full benefits, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Right.
knew that. But my mind is like a hamster wheel, with
Yeah.
a rat running through. He goes, you know what else it could be, Basil? So that
Yeah.
to me is always the fun part.
Yeah. I had almost a similar situation, Basil. I have to tell you, this is 20 something years ago. My grandmother passed away, and God bless Father Chingas at our church. He's passed away last year, and he was very old school. The church always came
Right.
first. Very, very strong man of faith, and shows up to the funeral home, do the service there, and we're sitting in the back of the room, and he comes up to me, and he says, Petro, I haven't seen you in church for some time. Um, do you still live in the area? I said, yes, Pater, I still live in the area, but, I've been working a lot of hours, so I can't commit to the church as much as you would like me to. And he kind of sat there and gave me a lecture of why I needed to attend, and that I needed to more or less put my job on the back burner and bring God more into my life. And I said to him, Father, I understand what you're saying, but just because I'm not coming to church every Sunday doesn't mean that I've lost faith. I still have faith in
Good.
the church. And so, afterwards, and I just thought it was kind of an odd place to question my faith at my grandmother's wake, basically.
Yeah.
So I told my mother, I said, listen, he came up to me and he questioned my mother's like, don't worry about it. Just put it on the back burner. Well, next day is the funeral, we're at the church, we're sitting at the front pew, and like a typical Greek church, we're sitting in the front pew, the aisle, and my mother's sitting in the front pew in the middle section. You got the aisle running in between. So the father says, the other day, somebody said to me, you don't have to come to church to have faith. And him and I just started cracking it up, and all of a sudden, like not out loud, but just to ourselves. And all of a sudden, I see my mother lean forward, look at me, and give me like the Greek stink
Oh,
eye. And and afterwards, I'm like, did I hit a nerve with this guy? Like, like I'm sorry, but
mm,
not it's that old school mentality, which in retrospect, like you were saying, I know what he was trying to say. I understood his message, but my whole thing is timing is everything. And maybe that wasn't the right time to question whether or not I'm coming to church or not. I said the only thing that was missing at the wake was passing the collection plate around. That was the only thing that was missing.
It was
Um,
it was literally the entire sermon. And
the
I don't think
liturgy, yeah.
my brother doesn't do it justice because he was, again, another one. He'd wear his glasses down here and he would come out and he would, yesterday,
Yeah.
a friend of mine said to me, Pater, you don't need to come to church to know God.
Yeah.
And then that was the next hour and a half. And it's weird to have an occasion like that that's supposed to be, mournful. We talk about it all the time because you're like, it's you can't script
No.
that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the question, the one question I was going to ask you, Basil, that I think was on the list of questions we were going to ask. I always find it when you're self-effacing, when you're Greek, talking about being Greek and all of the craziness that happens, nobody typically argues with you. I would like to think that it's the same thing when you talk about going to a Greek Orthodox church versus Catholic church or Presbyterian. It's the same thing. Have you ever gotten pushback from Greeks on any of your material? Because we know there is or we like to call them the Greeky Greeks, that regardless of what you say, they're going to come out and point the thing out that you should have said because you didn't use the right words or you didn't attribute it to this or anything else. Have you ever run into that with any of your own material?
It's funny you mentioned that. You're always going to have someone, for whatever reason, not like you for whatever reason. I did a recent post just a couple of days ago where my daughter took me to go and get this pedicure. And I had this real funny picture. It said, it takes a real man to be a wuss and get a pedicure, something to that. I said, anyone up for a toe job, you just let me know. I'm ready. Something like that. Something funny, whatever. And I had this one character, I'm not going to mention his name, but this guy has just been a hater. It doesn't matter what I've done. And I just blocked him. But and then he made mention that I was with my in-laws, and we all went to dinner and stuff. He goes, "Oh yeah, great Basil. He's with his family, but you make you wind up telling people that you're getting a pedicure and stuff like that." And I'm like, it was very hateful. So I just blocked them. My assistant, who I had a few years ago, was an elderly woman whom I loved, Stella, Miss Stella, and I have two file cabinet drawers with the files are this thick, each one of them, and they are letters and emails and cards, everything from we just lost our daughter from cancer. Thank you for making us laugh. We just lost our son in Iraq. Thank you for making us laugh. We brought our families together, and they're just not Greeks. These are non-Greeks and everything.
Yeah.
And of all, and because Stella asked me, says, Basil, what are you going to do with all these? And I said, well, one day, honey, I'm going to be 90 years old, and I'm going to wonder what the hell did I do with my life? And I'm going to be able to go ahead and literally start reading these letters and realize that I helped change someone's life by making them laugh and smile again. And to me, okay, maybe it's, maybe someone who's hearing this right now says, oh, that's garbage, or whatever. You're doing it for the money. Listen, I get paid very handsomely. I truly do. I'm very, very blessed. I'm very good with my money, and so is my wife. But I truly believe that I'm doing my job is to put a smile on people's faces. And then there is that one file where I literally have 6 hate mails. They don't like what I do. I'm an embarrassment to the Greeks and whatever. And my only answer to them is very simply, pull your head out of your ass. Real simple. If you're going to take it so seriously that whatever I'm saying, oh my God, it's an embarrassment. No, it's not an embarrassment. You're the embarrassment. You're the embarrassment. Probably no one talks to you in your family. You have no sense of humor, and you're probably kind of probably hated in your family.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying, just grow up. Now, if I was listen, when I was younger, I admit I had a head when I was an athlete. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I was all that in a bag of chips, and maybe my youth and my youthful indiscretions and stuff like that may have, changed my way of thinking and doing things. But I got to tell you, man, sometimes it's you think about that, and yeah, you're going to get people who are haters. Terry, it's one of the, and it's a good question. You're going to get people. Um, during the election of 2000, I have friends of
Mm-hmm.
mine who are in Congress and Senate who I've known. A lot of people don't know that I worked in Washington D.C. at Capitol Hill. I was a legislative assistant for a Democrat. I got a chance to work at the DoD, Department of Defense, doing
Mm-hmm.
stupid little mundane. I had no top secret thing. I didn't put myself on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't get, no,
Yeah.
I'm too big of a target. I certainly don't want to get
Yeah.
shot at. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Vasily, where's my
yeah,
coffee?
yes, so, yeah, I was very, very fortunate, right? And I have a friend of mine, Congressman Gus Bilirakis, the
Mm-hmm.
congressional, oh my God, 13th, out of Tampa. And he would come on. I used to have a podcast. It was called A Pinch of Basile. And
Mm-hmm.
loved having him on the show. He is what I refer to as a centrist. He's not way, way
Mm-hmm.
right. He's
Yeah.
kind of in the middle. And,
Yeah.
I like that. I like someone who's a little bit because I'm what you refer to
Mm-hmm.
as a gypsy moth, meaning I'm very conservative on social, not social, but very conservative on military issues and fiscal issues. But I'm more liberal on social issues. Okay,
Sure.
look what I do
Sure.
for a
Mm-hmm.
living. I espouse my political thoughts and my opinions on a stage, for God's sakes. Okay,
Yeah.
so I do that, and I had these people, Greeks for Biden, who were like, "Oh my God, he's a Republican." She's correct. And then I had this one woman who told me, "Well, I just talked to Basil's mother, and she is so disappointed." And now my mother has been dead for 33 years. Okay. And I'm like, so I got a hold of her. I said, "Don't ever bring my mother up again. My mother's been dead for 33 years. I don't want to hear this crap." I said, "It's people
Mm-hmm.
like you that make this world an ugly place." And she's like, "You're
Yeah.
harassing me." "Honey, you want harassment? I'll send people over to harass you." She jumped out of that group. She's no longer there. I don't like when, you got an issue with me, come to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got an issue with me, don't go to my family, don't go to, come to me,
Yeah.
and then grow up. Look, I'm past the
Mm-hmm.
days where I'm going to beat the snot out of you, as much as I would like to sometimes beat the snot out of certain people. No,
Sure.
I just don't do that. And you got to learn to be Teflon, where you got to let it slide off. That's all.
Absolutely.
You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So yeah, listen, I've always realized that not everyone is going to love you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, and my kids got upset because there were like people who didn't want to be, and they would message me, "Oh, we don't want to be friends with you anymore. We don't want to follow you anymore." What am I going to do? I
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry I had
Yeah.
an opinion. I'm sorry that I was friends with someone. I'm sorry that and I've always invited the opposing side to come across and give me their point of view. And
Mm-hmm.
they some came on. I had a wonderful congresswoman from Tennessee who was a Democrat, and she came on. She was wonderful, and I had so much fun with her. And she was teasing me, and I was
Yeah.
teasing her. Didn't matter. I didn't
Yeah.
bring up certain
Yeah.
things, and I asked her, "What do you want me to bring up? You want me to talk about this?" She had a book that was coming out. We talked about the book, and that was
Yeah.
really about it. But not
Yeah.
everyone, unfortunately. It's like people are going to watch your show. You're going to have that one guy or that one woman. I just didn't like this. But why? I
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. We've been down that road.
Yeah,
We've been done. Yeah.
We've been down that road.
But on both podcasts, as we said in the beginning, our goal was not to try to interpret somebody's story. It's not our story. It's your story. And
Mm-hmm.
so put aside the, how much, expletives and things like that. To me, that's a separate issue. If you don't like it, you could turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
sure.
This is what we set out to do. And anybody who's been on our show, most people have been on our show, like that, because and I think that's why people have come to us, because they've listened and we've been very explicit. We're here to hear your story as Greeks. We want to hear, you don't have to be born in Greek. You don't even have to speak the language, but we want to follow that thread. And I think the other thing I look at from comedy, because I hear other comedians talk about this thing in this day and age of comedy, intent matters, right?
Yeah.
Your intent as our intent. Sarcasm is part of our comedy, and you could draw a conclusion that says sarcasm is just another way for the truth, and I will disagree. Sarcasm to me is a way of being quick-witted and to say something, a perspective of a view or something you've experienced that somebody hasn't thought of, but I'm not looking to hurt anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And if it came across that way the first time, I would apologize. I'm sorry, that wasn't my intent. But to your point, if it continues and you clearly can see that this person's mind is completely different place, then yeah, you just have to pass go.
And you really don't know who you're going to offend these days. I mean, as a comedian, you judge your material by the reaction of the audience. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If something is overboard, they'll let you know. They won't laugh. They'll just sit there and look at you. Trust me. I wanted to do something that was going to be somewhat thought-provoking, because people always ask me, is it difficult, during this period of wokeism? I say, yeah, sure it is. So my sister-in-law asked me to tell the kids who were like 5, 6 years old, 8, 7, and 9, right? Tell the kids the birds and bees, but make it funny. Excuse me? She goes, tell the kids the birds and bees, make it funny. And I said, Arj, I don't want to tell the kids the birds. I don't let the parent. No, you're gonna make it funny. Just do it. We'll be all there. It's gonna be. I told her, I don't want to tell the kids the birds and bees. And he goes, tell the kids the damn birds and bees, and let's get this crap over with. Let's go. Chop chop.
Yeah.
And I go, kids, come around Uncle Basil. There are birds and there are bees, and some bees don't want to be bees anymore, and they want to get their fingers
just tell them that you can always start with the moon, and a little moon is, and that's a great place to start.
Exactly.
Right.
That's a true story with my daughter. My daughter, I'm taking my kids. The little one was too young. I took my daughter. She goes, oh my God, Dad, look at that. I was like, that's a big, and it was like it was like October 31st. I happened to be home. I'm taking my daughter. And of course, I got something about this size, if not bigger, full about this much bourbon, about that much 7-Up. And I'm happy, very happy. I'm looking through, because I got to have my Smarties. If I don't have a Smartie while I'm, on Halloweeny, I take all the kids' Smarties because it's bad for them. So anyway, I'm sitting there. So I got Zacharul in my hand, and Kula's got Zacharul on the other side holding her hand. We're walking. And she goes, oh my goodness, Dad, that's a big moon. I said, yes, it is. And I said, that's a Fangati. And I go, yes. And she goes, how do you say little moon? And I'm like, Munaki. And my wife's looking at me. I'm like, what? And she hits me and goes, no, Fengaraki. Fengaraki. So I'm like an idiot, and it's my fault. It's like, if you're, you put an aki at the end of any Greek word, makes it small, or I put an IE at the end. All right. Exactly. Floor, flori. Okay. Roof, roofy. Okay. And of course, the guy who works on the roofy is the Rufianos. And to me, that was okay. And, and I try. Listen, I always try, if I say something stupid, I admit to it. To me, it's fun. You are not going to make everyone happy. And there's going to be some people who are going to put their hands over their eyes and go, oh my God. But they'll come up to you and tell you, okay, I couldn't laugh at my table, but that was hysterical. And they'll come up to me, and even have priests who will tell me, Joe's, and they'll say, come here, that was funny as hell. I couldn't laugh in public, but I love that bit. So for me, it worked.
I just literally within 48 hours ago, I got back from Greece, and I've seen so many of your routines that so many things happened that you constantly kept popping into my head. So especially with the Aki. So I was in Naples, Italy, and I was flying to Athens, and flight attendant comes up and, would you like something to drink? And I said, yeah, Nero. And she goes, oh, filete neraki. And I'm like, neraki, sure, you know. And then I was going from Thessaloniki back to Athens, and I was at the Aegean Lounge, and I'm walking around. What do they have to drink here? And I see they have the Keurig of Greek coffee machine they have there. So you put the cartridge in, it makes you a single or a double, and I'm like, and then only thing I'm making myself a little Greek coffee, and then I hear your voice going, cafe mazi, and I'm just dying there in front.
which is the other seminal routine. We remember seeing that going. You have to sit down with Yaya.
You got to.
Yeah. Oh,
You
yeah.
got to.
And I'm like, and this happened to us because she'd be like, "Pedimos namaskanis cafe." Oh, okay.
We had to make the coffee too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Shit, you guys were good. I mean, really. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sitting there drinking Elenico Cafe. I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
I didn't sleep November.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I'm like, Tite, down about 90. And she always wants to go ahead and tell my tiki, right? They always want to tell you,
Yeah.
flips the cup over, right? And she goes, and after a while, she goes, ugh. It's always good news. You're never going to hear, Capitani Savrio. You're never going to hear that, right? So it's always good. It always has something to do on the mountain. And then she goes, oh, vlepo vuno. No shit, it was dripping upside down. Of course you're going to see a vuno, you know? And I'm like, okay. Que vlepo na lago, que pidai, que to lago, ehi, lefta, que agapi, messi zepitu. And do you know what this means, Vasily? Yeah, so that's what it means. You really have to ask me, for God's sakes? But this is the woman who literally made me laugh. So, all right. One day we were going to vote, first Tuesday in November. All right. So the word for voting in Greek is what? Do you know what it is?
Yeah. No, I just drew a blank.
Napsifiso.
Napsifun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The word for something that died is psofiset.
Yeah.
Okay. So I pick up Yaya to take her to the voting area. I said, prepin up sophisis. And she looked at me. She goes, prepin up sophisis. She goes, then me. I said, Suipa, I'm coming at 4:00. Na supao na sophisis. And she's like, but prepin up papu. Goodbye. And I said, no, come on, hurry up. You don't have to say goodbye. It's okay. I'm taking you. You're going to take me to get to my death. And I'm like, death? What the hell are we talking about? You know, so I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my God. You know, and I'm like, oh shit. This woman thinks I'm going to take her to her death. He goes, when she told me she wasn't ready, that's when I knew there was an issue. Then he made me
So we were talking about before. We were talking about how, people pushing back on your material. But have you ever had an issue with hecklers?
Because I'm so quick, they're afraid.
Excellent.
Even in my American show.
Yeah.
And listen, I don't really refer to them as hecklers. I think they're people that want to participate. Okay, in the show.
Sure.
And so what I do is I love when I have the ability to go ahead and literally talk to these people. And in my show, I mean, I'm always going to have, our star person in the audience. First thing I always ask, who here is not Greek? And you're always going to have a small percentage, right? And you find that one person who's right in front of you, man or woman. And I'll say, and what's your name? And he goes, my name is Patrick, which is Greek for Xeno. Beautiful. Okay. So anyway, I just start, going back and forth, right? And just hitting them. And of course, I teach them all the wrong Greek, the wrong tense, everything, So to me, you're going to have, and I go back and forth and they see that I'm working, because that's the beauty. And I guess the difference between my show and a lot of other people's shows. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
you're going to hear sometimes because I change my show around so much.
Okay.
And so what I do is I literally will go ahead and take my material and work it as I'm working the crowd. So it changes, even though it's the same basic, you're going to get that outline of that material, but it
Mm-hmm.
changes dramatically because of all the various elements that you're adding to it. And that's the difference
Sure.
between my show and a lot of other stand-up comics, Greek or otherwise. And I do the same
Mhm.
thing. I work for Royal Caribbean exclusively. I don't work for any other cruise line. And Royal Caribbean also happens to have celebrity. So I work celebrity cruises. As a matter of fact, on July 13th, I'm on the
Mhm.
celebrity ship, the Infinity, because I got to fly into Athens, and my daughter and I are going
Mhm.
to spend a few days together. And then from
Nice.
there, I take off and I go into on the ship to entertain. And you're going to have about 800, and depending on the size of the ship, 800 to 2,000 people per show. And I
Mhm.
have them turn up the lights, and I start going after them about college kids, and bam, 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 bam. I said, where are the Greeks in here? And I start going bam, bam, bam. And that's fun. And even the captains on Celebrity, believe it or not, are all Greek. They're all Greek.
Wow.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. That was part of the deal when the family who owned it, which was a Greek family, sold it
Okay.
over to Royal Caribbean as one of their properties. They said all of our captains, or at least 90% of them, must be
Okay.
Greek, and at least 50% of their first officers must be
Yeah.
Greek. Isn't that cool?
Interesting.
So you walk in there,
Yeah.
and some of them know me. Vasily, Kapitania Tibukanis. I walk in there.
Yeah.
So to me, it's really, really cool to see them
Yeah.
and to have so much fun with these cats.
Yeah.
And I always give them hell, and the people in the audience love it because they're like,
Mhm.
can we be Greek? More than you know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyone can be Greek, okay?
Exactly.
But I love entertaining on the ships because there is such a cross section of the world. You
Yeah.
know, white, black, Hispanic, doesn't matter what part of the world. Everyone's going to be different, and that's the great beauty of it. You have such a diverse type of same thing here in an American Comedy Club, or playing Vegas,
Mhm.
or playing. I'm playing Myrtle Beach this week, right? Monday through
Yep.
Sunday. Love it, bro. I love it. And the 7th, and then the 8th,
Mhm.
I got to take off for Greece. So you're like, oh God, this is going to be crazy. But
Yeah.
I love it. It's
Yeah.
fun, and people
I love
enjoy
that.
it. And as long as they enjoy it, I enjoy it with them. And people always ask, do you think you'll ever retire? Nah, not really. I'll probably die on stage, and you bastards will
Mm.
leave me on stage thinking, no, this is a bit of his. Let him go. And they'll watch me. I'll have a massive heart attack or something like that. No, this is really funny. I've never seen this bit before. Go ahead. They're just
Yeah.
watching me. Um, so I've been so blessed into
Yeah.
doing a lot of this craziness with my
Mhm.
audience. So a lot of people, getting back to your original question, they're afraid to heckle. And if they do, I smack them down, but in a nice way. Because if you smack an audience
Yeah.
member too hard, then the
Yeah.
audience, the dynamic will change, and it'll go against you. So you really
Yeah.
have to judge it as to when you can hit down and stuff. But I've never had an issue, knock on wood, no, knock on wood, that I've been blessed with that. Yeah.
So when you think back about your earlier days in comedy in the mid to late 80s to where we are now in comedy and with social media, do you feel social media has given you more visibility globally?
Yes and no. There are
Okay.
some comedians that have made great strides with their material and their personalities because of their stuff that they've done on
Yeah.
social media. Your brother Terry, you can attest to this because you work in IT. You've seen this where someone can pull a rabbit out of their PC. No, oh my God, the guy's brilliant. How does he do that? Oh Jesus, and all of a sudden they have 100,000 followers. But you put him in front of a crowd, and the only bit he's got is pulling the rabbit out of his piscino, and the rest, and then you have half the audience leave the room because he's got nothing. So it's been a
Yeah.
godsend for some, and for some others, not so much. Me, it's always been
Yeah.
a very slow, steady climb, and I
Sure.
got mine the honest way. If you want to follow me, follow me. And by the way, you can always get a hold of me on Basil the Comedian, Basile the Comedian, on Facebook and on Instagram, Basil Comedian on X. And then you can go to Basil Space the Comedian on YouTube and catch some of the older stuff that I've done. And then
Yeah.
we add certain bits and pieces. However, what I have learned is never ever go ahead and put your full length pieces, because unfortunately, sometimes there are a lot of comedians that are not, how should I say, not real honest about how they come up with their material, and they'll steal material.
And the Greek word is copycat.
Yeah, copycat. I would have known that.
Of
Vregati,
course. Of course.
you know.
You're welcome.
So for
So
me,
yeah.
it's always been I'll work. I like, because I told you I work the audience. And
Mm-hmm.
so I will do that. So now we're about ready to upload a crap load of stuff where I'm using it. And I've always wanted to have that type of, look, I cornered the market when I first came out. Everyone had
Absolutely.
to
Yeah.
watch it. Everyone had to see it. Everyone was talking about. I was doing 4 shows a week, right? I
Mm-hmm.
was flying from here to there to there to here, back and forth, all over the place, doing fundraisers for churches, having me back and everything. And what I've done is there's competition out there. And everyone is, if you're a Greek and you got 10 minutes, I'm going to do some time. Oh, let's hire Yanni. He's funny.
Mm-hmm.
They have no idea. There are comics that come from a certain point of view. May it be with their sexuality, may it be with their whatever they have. That's not me. I come across, when I do the Greek shows, growing up Greek in America, a la Australia, growing up Greek in America, a la South Africa, growing up Greek in
Mm-hmm.
America, a la Canada. So I do it. And working
Yeah.
the audience has allowed me to go ahead. Now, listen, have I had some shows? I'll never forget. I did a show in New York, and
Mm-hmm.
it was at a nightclub. It was like a Greek nightclub in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And this church hired me. I said, why don't you just do it at the church? I don't have to have
Mm-hmm.
it at a hall. No, we want to have it
Yeah.
at the hall. Fine. So next door in the same complex, and the walls are like this thin. They got a DJ playing the music full blast and everything. And I'm trying to do a show. And then waiters and waitresses coming in and out. It disturbed me, let alone the
Mm-hmm.
audience. And it was like one of those shows. I'm like, oh, this kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Don't, if I see that I'm being set up for failure, I just stop. I go, listen, we're not going to do that. Tell the DJ to cut the music off until I'm done with my show. Well, they have a
Mm-hmm.
party over there. Huh? Let's not do the show then. It's real simple, because at the end of the night, guess what? It's got my name on it. But I do the best
Yeah.
that I can, because these people paid for it, you know. And
Yeah.
look, my fundraisers, when I do them, my
Mm-hmm.
fundraisers, they make net 15, 20,000 bucks, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and so I have a nonprofit rate that I charge them, and I go
Mm-hmm.
on and do my thing. They make money. I make my little so my little percentage that I make, and
Sure.
that's it. And like I said, thank God I've been very, very good with my money. I don't drink a lot. I don't do a lot. I said a lot. Okay. I don't have any vices that kind of bring me down or whatever. And I love talking to people at the end of the show. Sometimes the traveling can be hell.
Yeah.
Speaking a
Can
foreign
imagine.
language, curly, dark hair, dark eyes, through security does not make for an easy pass through security at times. So,
Mm-hmm.
especially, I was just in Istanbul, and they knew I was Greek. They could tell by
Yeah.
my name. And they're
Yeah.
like, I went through security like 3 times. I said,
Yeah.
the only thing I was missing was a cavity search, and I thought, oh, Mama was going to go
Yeah.
ahead and do that too.
Yeah.
But, I enjoy Turkey. I
Yeah.
love Kusadase. I went to Izmir, which is Smyrna,
Mm-hmm.
the Greek Smyrna, it's called Izmir now. And
Yeah.
you know, I I just I like that they all look like us. I mean, they're us.
Yeah, of
They're
course.
us. That's all.
Yeah,
They look
yeah,
at
I
you,
think
cousin Adefi. They know how to speak a little bit of Greek,
yeah,
and I try to speak a little bit of Turkish. And when I do, next thing you know, I'll be in prison. Don't worry. If
yeah,
you don't hear from me for a while, you'll know I'm in some type of a Turkish prison
yeah.
someplace.
I
It's the
comment.
remake of the Midnight
Oh,
Express.
Billy, Billy, Billy.
I think uh, I think comedy is another great bridge and connector across cultures if you let it be. And I think my take on social media and technology in general is, and I have this conversation with people all the time because I've had people, especially with the AI stuff, look at me and say, "Why would you work on something like that?" Right? Because they always see the negative side of it. With me, with technology, whether it's in healthcare, what my brother does, and other things, I always look for the good and be aware enough of the bad to try to stay aware, to
Sure,
try to influence it. And so for me, comedy is the same thing. To me, I think for somebody like yourself, you still have to develop the material, and it's your personality that gives it life. I can take your material and I can do it, and maybe I can come close because I'm Greek and I can do the accent that makes it so
sure.
powerful, but not everybody can do it, for one. Two, I think in the same way that I've had bartender friends of mine where I'd go into a bar that's known for cheap beer, $2 beer. And I sit at the bar and I notice people are ordering either $2 beers or old fashions. And Tucson is very much of a college town,
Yeah,
right? We have the U of A,
sure.
right? And so I watch this happen and I'm like, I can understand the $2 beers. What's up with the old fashions? And he's like, the bartender's like, the hipsters. I've had people come up to me and go, "Have you heard of this drink, the old fashioned? It's amazing." And so to me, social media gives certainly newer generations, because I consider you OG, right? In the 80s, we watch TV and so forth, but you certainly have newer generations that know the newer comedians, but they may not have heard your material. And all of a sudden, which I'm sure is a pretty cool thing to have somebody talk about, yeah, giving them cafe. And you're like, how old are you?
Hmm.
So I would think that social media has an ability to get your message, your comedy out to a generation that is not familiar because you didn't grow up with it.
Sure.
But I can also see, because people like to hide behind walls, hide behind social media. But I can also see the negative folks coming out and giving you crap, which, to your point, blocking them and not giving them the time of day
I just don't want
is
the
probably the best way
negative.
to go.
That's the one thing that always killed me. People who are negative. If you're a negative nanny, I just don't want you in my life. I